Hey YouTube, this is part 2 of the most likely to be haunted. So, let's get started. Oh, really? Hey YouTube, SA65 here with part 2 of the top 10 most likely to be haunted. Now we stopped at number 5, so let's begin with there. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This story opened in 1892 as a part of a controversial moment to try to change the behavior of inmates through confinement in solitude with labor. Eastern State Penitentiary quickly became one of the most expensive and most copied prison buildings in the young United States, housing the worst of the criminals, rapists, gangsters, serial killers, murderers, and more. For more than 140 years, thousands of inmates passed through the cells of Eastern State Penitentiary until its closed in 1970. The facility lay vacant for 2 decades until it was reopened as a tourist attraction and museum in the 1990s. Eastern State Penitentiary is one of America's oldest standing prisons and home to ghost hunting and paranormal investigations of all aspects, as hundreds of reported deaths, both from natural causes and murder, occurred within the prison's walls. Why I believe this haunting is real? The edge of the building, combined with both the number of people believed deaths in the facility and sheer illness of many of the inmates in Eastern State Penitentiary, makes it a total believable haunting. Then there's the torturous techniques used on inmates: fire bath, mad chair, iron gag, and the hole, among others, which often resulted in death. Charles Dickens visited Eastern State in 1840s and wrote that inmates were buried alive, and described the psychological and physical torture suffered at the hands of prison guards as appalling. And, of course, there were countless reports of paranormal activity, most famous of which is the locksmith story. While doing restoration work in cell block number 4, the locksmith was working to remove a 140-year-old lock from the cell door on a massive force that came in so powerfully he was unable to move. The locksmith spoke of experiencing an out-of-body state as he was drawn toward the negative energy which burst through the cell. Evil faces appeared on the wall, hundreds of distorted forms swirled around the cell block, and one dominating form seemed to beckon the locksmith to him. The man's experience was so horrific, years after he would cower in fear when asked about the experience. Number 4, Alcatraz Island, San Francisco, California. The story, long before Alcatraz came to host many of the most notorious criminals known to man, it was known by Native Americans as a place that contained evil spirits, calling it Alone, a Miwok Indian word meaning Western people. These Native Americans used the island as a place of punishment for members violating tribal laws. Alcatraz Island received its first prisoners in the 1850s, in the form of U.S. military prisoners who were placed there to build a defensive fort and, eventually, a new prison. This new prison later became known as the Rock. Through the years, Alcatraz served many purposes, from military base to one of the most infamous prisons in American history. Before its closure in 1963, Alcatraz housed prisoners like Al Capone and other notoriously ruthless criminals. The prison facility has long been the subject of great controversy. Just the thought of Alcatraz conjures up ghostly images of the paranormal. There have been numerous ghostly encounters on Alcatraz Island, too many to list here. But some of the most famous or infamous stories include the corridor, where 3 inmates were gunned down while trying to escape; Cell Block C, a visiting psychic who died in Cell Block C. He came upon a disruptive spirit named Butcher. Prison records that another inmate in Cell Block C murdered Abby Maldowitz, a mob hitman known as the Butcher, and the ghost of Al Capone. Capone spent his last years at Alcatraz, and there have been many supposed appearances by the dead gangster. Why I believe this haunting is real? Some early American Indian believed that the island was evil, due to the initial prisoners who both worked and died on the island during its prison transformation in the 1850s, to the many murders committed within the prison walls. It's not hard to understand why so many people, including me, firmly believe that the paranormal activity on Alcatraz Island is real. Number 3, Borden House, Fall River, Massachusetts. This story. Surely you've heard the rhyme surrounding this story. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks, and when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. In 1892, both Lizzie's father and stepmother were slaughtered in the Borden home. Lizzie Borden stood trial for the brutal murders, but was acquitted. Lizzie herself actually discovered the body of her father on the first floor of the boarding family home. The only other person in the house at the time was the maid, who was upstairs napping. Lizzie called out the maid to come downstairs. Lizzie said that her father had apparently been killed while she was at the barn. He had been hacked in the face and head with a axe or hatchet. After the authorities were called, Abby, Lizzie's stepmother, was found dead in the bedroom of the home. Abby had also been hacked many times throughout her face and body with an axe or hatchet. Later tests revealed that Abby had died 1 to 2 hours before Andrew. Because Andrew Borden died without a will, this meant that his estate, worth about $300,000 to $500,000, would go to his daughters, including Lizzie, and not to Abby's heirs. Many people have speculated over the years that Lizzie committed the murders so she would be not taken out of the family inheritance. Lizzie Borden died of Fall Massachusetts in 1927. Her legend as a murderess haunted her for the remainder of her life. She was buried next to her father and stepmother. The home in which the murders took place as a museum and bed and breakfast in 1992. Or I believe this haunting is real. Numerous guests at the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast have reported hearing voices of a woman softly weeping in the night, only to investigate and find no one there. Other guests have seen shoes move across the floor, while others had an older woman in traditional dress tucked them in at night. Lights are reported to flicker. Video equipment is suddenly turned on and off, and cameras work when no one is using them, but won't work when you expect them to. All distinct signs of paranormal activity. Number 2, the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Funny name. The story: horrid violence, death, destruction, gunfights, riots, war, and more. These are all things that have happened on the grounds of the University of Alabama. Opening story to the public in 1831, the University of Alabama has seen more than its fair share of phantoms, spirits, and other apparitions on its grounds and its buildings. After 29 years of mayhem on the school grounds, it was decided to transform into a military academy, just in time for the Civil War. And with this turn of focus, the school seemed to become a place of evil. It is reported that in April of 1865, a Union soldier came to campus to sign a treaty. When he entered the cadet guardhouse, now known as Station Sergeant or Little Roadhouse, he was beaten, tortured, and then murdered. Another similar story accounts that when the Union troops were marching to the university, supposedly to burn it down, 2 Confederate soldiers stayed behind to kill a few Yankees. When 3 Federal soldiers asked one of the cadets where to find some whiskey, he told them to go into the small structure, lying in wait when the 2nd Southern cadet who shot 3 soldiers when they entered the building. Many of the haunting stories surrounding the University of Alabama are said to be those of Civil War era victims. It is rumored that on foggy nights, the spades of soldiers can be seen marching through the quad in an unknown spectral destination. But there are many reports of other believed spirits roaming the campus as well, including reports of seeing the horse-drawn carriage of Dr. Smith, from whom Smith Hall is named, careening through buildings as well as the sound of horses coming from nowhere. Countless other people have been made of sightings of ghosts and spirits in many buildings throughout the campus, possibly the most famous of which is the tale of Gorgas Library, where it said the spirit of Black Man Warner's black stacks books, sometimes touching people browsing materials. Why I believe this haunting is real? With all the death and turmoil throughout the University of Alabama's history, and the literally thousands of supposed sightings and ghostly encounters, it only seems apparent that at least some of these reports must be true. And number 1, Waverly Hills Sanitarium, Louisville, Kentucky. The story: first opening in 1910 as a small 2-story hospital, the Waverly Hills Sanitarium specialized in the treatment of tuberculosis, an easily curable disease today. TB had no truly successful treatment options at this time in history. Rampant spreading of the disease throughout the country meant the small hospital would soon be overcrowded. By 1924, a much larger building was erected, and more tuberculosis patients from around the country being sent to the facility. As there truly was no cure for TB in the early to mid-1900s, hundreds, if not thousands of patients were submitted to torturous testing, abuse, and experimentation as treatment for the disease. It is estimated that as many as 40,000 people died in the hospital, either from the effects of the disease itself or from the experimental procedures performed on many of the patients. In fact, so many people passed away so quickly at the Waverly Hills Sanitarium that a body chute was invented to transport the dead out of the hospital. The body chute, as it was nicknamed, was simply a tunnel that was dug from the lower level of the hospital to a field that was out of sight of the main areas of the hospital. Nurses would line up the opening of the tunnel, and hospital employees would wheel the dead from the hospital to the waiting automobiles. Excuse me. This was done so that the still living patients would not be affected by the massive numbers that did leave the hospital every day. The Waverly Hills Sanitarium is said to be one of the hottest spots for paranormal activity in the world. Almost all aspects of a haunting have been witnessed in and around the location. Everything from cold spots and disembodied voices to ghostly appearances, flying objects, and even reported demonic possessions have been witnessed at the former tuberculosis hospital. I personally witnessed some of the more standard paranormal activity that you might expect, like objects flying across the room, doors opening or shutting on their own, sounds that appear to be human voices / crying, but no one could be found, and that sort of thing. And of course, my friends and I thought we saw ghostly apparitions several times when we were there. But then you take into account all the death that surrounds this place, combined with the torture and abuse of the patients, not to mention all the countless people like myself who have had first-hand accounts of paranormal activity there. I just feel that there is little doubt that this is a true haunting. Well, YouTube, about does it for me. Anything else? No, have a good night.